Hello, everybody. Today is March 12th. It's 2016. I decided today that I've got a few questions about analytics and information about like what my demographic is and things like that. And I figured since the 1 year sort of anniversary of this channel is coming up, according to YouTube, I opened this channel on March 27th. So basically the end of the month. And since it's been a year, I figured I would sort of be a little transparent and give the information that YouTube gives to me, because YouTube gives you lots of information, and I do pay attention to it when I look at requests and when I get suggestions and things like that. So I figured I'd make a channel about this, be a little transparent. Obviously, the facts that I'm given now will probably either may stay the same, or it'll be interesting to compare another year whether or not this kind of thing changes at all. I can say right now that I'm mostly happy with all the information I'm given. Some of it I'll talk about later. So we'll start out with the big topic, the first topic that comes up, which is gender demographics. Who watches more? Overly, 2/3 are men. First of all, 69% men, 31% women, which is telling. But then you break it down into, okay, so age-wise, the biggest age group that I have, as it turns out, are people 25 to 34 with 28.3%, and then 18 to 24 with 28%. So majority of the people are between 18 to 34, somewhere in that range. But if you break that up, the largest single demographic are men 25 to 34, who represent 22% of my base, followed by men who are 18 to 24 with 18%, and finally women 18 to 24 with 10%. And then from there it breaks down to smaller groups, but that's just kind of how all the information breaks down there. Of people who, in terms of countries you watch me, 67% of the people are from the United States. The next lowest, or the next highest, I would say, is the United Kingdom with 10%, Canada at 4.7%, Australia at 2.2%, and the Netherlands at 1.8%. That's the top five. So again, over 2/3 of my viewing population, as it were, are from the U.S. In terms of where you're watching me, this is overwhelmingly on YouTube. YouTube's watch page, as opposed to other sites or things like that. 97% watch on YouTube's watch page. In terms of where my traffic comes from, it's 31% suggested videos, which means on the side of watching other videos, it's suggested. 25%, a fourth of the people who watch me, get it from YouTube search. From there, it's YouTube channels at 16% and other at 28%. So that's what really confuses me, because it says other 28%, which means my second highest traffic source comes from somewhere else, and just other. I'm like, where is this other, and what does it mean? Because that's a pretty big percent. It's over a fourth of my traffic comes from some other source, and I really wish I knew what that was. In terms of devices used, what surprised me is that 50% of the people who watch me on your phones, and I never thought about that. In fact, the next biggest is tablets at 23% and computer at 23%. I thought overwhelmingly people would be watching me on my computer. As it turns out, a vast majority, over half, in fact, almost 75% of people listen to me on phones and tablets, which is surprising. As it turns out, there's also 2.5% of people who listen on game consoles, which I found kind of interesting. But again, yeah, it's strange to me that almost 75% of people listen to me on mobile devices. I suppose I should consider that when moving forward. In terms of operating systems, because if you want to know about creepy stuff that YouTube tracks, they track your operating system too, which means 37% of you use iOS and 35% of you use Android, and then Windows takes up the other 19%. And then there's a bunch of other ones that it tracks. It literally tracks everything. It's a little interesting. But from there, in terms of biggest videos in views, in terms of my most viewed videos, Werewolf Transformation Hypnosis, the first one, has 36,950 views. Second is Wolf Transformation Hypnosis with 33,366 views. Third is Blueberry Transformation Hypnosis with 31,757 views. Fourth is Weight Hypnosis with 20,463 views. And fifth is Balloon Transformation Hypnosis at 12,510 views. The other interesting metric that I learned is where people subscribe from. 4 times more people subscribe from my channel page than on the video page. So what that tells me is that when people watch my videos, they don't subscribe on the video that they watch. They go to my channel page and subscribe, which I like, but at the same time, it's a little curious about that, because you would think you would subscribe from the page. So yeah, that's basically just the metrics right now. I really did want to be kind of transparent in all the information that I have, because the information that I have reflects on the people who are watching me, the people I get suggestions from, and I built this channel on suggestions. I built it on viewer feedback, and so I kind of like looking at this sort of thing and determining where people are watching, what kinds of people view my stuff, how I can grow, things like that. Again, this is a hobby, but I still like to look into it. I will say that one thing I would like to do is even out the gender demographic. I kind of would like to get that a little more. I would like to figure out why I'm so heavily male, I guess. It's not a bad thing, mind you. It's a great thing, but it's interesting. Because I never thought the vast majority, 70% of my audience was going to be male. I didn't realize that. That might just be because a lot of the people interested in hypnosis videos are male. It might be because people who are sharing it are male, things like that. I don't know. It's curious. So I would like to be able to both to sort of even it out a little bit more, so I don't end up being completely one side or the other. I would like to sort of attract multiple kinds of people. Beyond that, I think it's a little interesting that, that of the people who I guess it's not surprising. I guess it makes sense. The people who I attract are between the ages somewhere between 18 and 34. The vast majority of people are from that little group right there. Well over half are somewhere between 18 and 34. Most of those men, as I said. And that's curious to me. It's very curious that I have the biggest population, or the biggest amount of people who view me are 25 to 34. If you just broke them down about which one's the biggest, 25 to 34-year-old men. Curious that that's the case, because I fit into that category. So I don't know if that's obvious that I fit into that category, or if this sort of thing just resonates with those people. The fact that a majority, almost 70% of the people who listen to me are from the U.S. I'm also from the U.S. Probably not surprising. I really would like to know why 28% is other. But I guess the last bit of useful information is that most people, well over about 75%, listen on phones and mobile devices. And so I might work to change a little bit how I do things because of that. Because normally when I render a video, I render it in high definition, because I figured people would be listening on computers. But it doesn't make sense to be rendering in high definition if people are listening on their phones, because that's just more data. So it doesn't make any sense to do that. So I might adapt how I do things to change and make it easier for people on mobile to listen to me. Beyond that, I don't know. It's just curious to me that the kinds of things that people are like, when you break down the retention, you break down how many people are watching or what videos people are watching. I guess it makes sense that my top 5 videos are all transformation videos in one way or another. I guess that's one thing I do well, I suppose. I mean, that would be the kind of thing that it's the kind of information I say where that's what people want in terms of views from my channel, or what I think I do well, because I gauge my metrics based on, I guess, viewer interest. So from there, although those are some of my older videos, so it does make sense they would have more views. On right now, as of right now, my average views within, say, a day or two, or anywhere between, are usually balanced around 200 to 300 views within a 2 or 3 day period. I would like to grow that eventually, but I think most of my views come after the fact. So, it probably helps that as I produce content, more people see it. So the more content I produce, the more people find it retroactively. That's what it seems like to me. Because my videos aren't really topical and don't exactly revolve around a certain date or anything like that. I want my content to be able to be viewed in a year from now, just as my content can be viewed last year the same way it was viewed today. That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's really it. I think it's just all the metrics that I was finding and felt like making a video on, so people could know, I guess, what kinds of people watch my content and what I look out for. That said, I am curious. I'm curious to know what kinds of things people would really like to see me do, because I get lots of suggestions. But I would like to see people. I don't get a lot of feedback. I get more suggestions than I get feedback. I would kind of like to see what people would like me to change or add or do more of or do less of, things like that. Feedback is really important to me, and right now the biggest thing that I have for feedback is my analytics. So I felt that I would share it with all of you, and that you could all see what I see, basically, or I guess hear what I see, in order to, I guess, see where I'm coming from when I make videos, or why I choose some suggestions over others, or prioritize certain things over other things. Anyway, this video's gone on long enough, so I guess we'll count this as a year anniversary, I suppose. Thank you to everyone who subscribed. We're almost at 1,700 subscriptions at this point. I am seriously thankful for all of you. As always, feel free to leave feedback. Feel free to make suggestions. I love all of it. So thanks, everybody. Hopefully we'll be here in a year. All right? Have a good day.